idea of composability has been such a huge topic in our recent episodes overall. I'm really curious about your take on it.
The whole notion of what is infrastructure to me is going to adapt. In a land where data becomes a baseline and common, where you're no longer working with marketing automation, data in CRM, data all over the place that copies data from other systems. And there's this soup of connected pipelines. When we can look at a future where there's a central repository on which microservices run, but the microservices don't hold data, that data repository becomes that central place where permissioning, where consent, where preference, all of those elements are harmonized because it's in a central location. So the composability becomes a little less of this, I'm going to pull from here, I'm going to pull from there. It becomes the data architecture. What is that backbone repository? And then on the topic of enrichment, I think that it's going to be a very interesting evolution when the generative consumption across all of the internet becomes the repository that's accessible and available to a large language model. It is no longer going to be really the outside vendors that are significant. It's going to be, how is a company leveraging its inherent intellectual property, its own knowledge bases, its own customer history, its own persona? So the enrichment sources are going to become internal sources, and the enrichment is going to become more the impact of that real-time enrichment where Phil completes a form and a real-time generative engine is going to be able to know two other people from Phil's organization are also active and consuming content off our own web properties. So the response when Phil takes this action and alerts us that he's interested in more information will be a generative created interactive communication that says, hey, you're already a customer. So we already have all the paperwork needed. If you're interested in more, here's a product-led growth stream that you could hop your way into and just continue a trial. Like all of that kind of contextual information will be Phil's experience. And so that will be all contextualized off of the data model, and enrichment becomes a microservice that we no longer have to be aware of. It just becomes a component of what that generative experience looks like.